Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Topic of the day. Listen, we got to talk college football playoff, right? The first ever weekend of the college football playoff has come and gone. First ever weekend of the 12-team playoff, I should say, has come and gone. And listen, even before I get into some of the negative and some of the blowouts and this and that, let me say, I thought it was so cool to have these games on campuses, have the fans involved, all of that. I said it. We did a little bit of a reaction to the Indiana and SMU games on Saturday. But I bring it up because Friday afternoon, out to lunch with my wife, we're grabbing a bite to eat, and you see College Game Day come on the screen, and you see them on campus at Notre Dame, and you're like, this is really freaking cool. So it's great to have college football playoff games on campus, but let's get into the lead story of the weekend, and the lead story is this. I got to go ahead and slap my hand on the wrist here because Torres has to take an L on Ohio State. Listen, let's go ahead and dive into this. The big story, the big game, Saturday night, Ohio State, final score 42-17. And for at least one day, Ryan Day has completely silenced all of his critics, including yours truly. Torres has to take the L. First off, I was thinking about this, and I did Fox Sports Radio on Saturday night right after the game. And I was thinking about this, is that I could be wrong on this. I don't remember anybody all week long making the definitive argument that Ryan Day and Ohio State were going to whoop that Tennessee butt, okay? We heard all week about the Tennessee fan invasion. We heard all week about the possibility of there being thousands of Tennessee fans. There were. And I think that even the people that picked Ohio State to win, everybody was like, this was kind of a back and forth. It could go either way. There were a lot of people like me that picked Tennessee to win outright. And so I'm not going to hide from it. I'm not going to duck it. But I'll also say, I don't really remember anybody making the definitive Ohio State is coming. Ohio State's kicking butt. Ohio State's taking names. Only that's exactly what happened on Saturday night. Truth of the matter is pretty straightforward. This game wasn't close. This game wasn't competitive. This was one of the dominant wins of the Ryan Day era and one of the great wins of the Ryan Day era as well. And what was so cool about this game, again, let's go ahead and give Ryan Day a little bit of credit, okay? What was the argument after the final game of the regular season against you-know-who? It was they tried too hard to get physical and ground and pound, and they got away from what they do well. What happens on the first drive of this game? 5 plays, 75 yards, touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith, who, with due respect to Travis Hunter, is probably already the best wide receiver in college football, okay? True freshman. He's an absolute beast. After the Michigan game, we said, why did you stop throwing Jeremiah Smith the football? So you get the touchdown on the opening drive. You do what your fans, what everybody in the media, like myself, wanted, which was, hey, feed your stars. Feed your beast. That's exactly what they do. Then from there, 3 and out, Tennessee punt. You score again. What was it? 6-7 plays, another touchdown. You go up 14-0. Then all of a sudden, another 3 and out. You score again. It's 21-0 before anyone can even blink. Okay. And it was funny because if you go back and you look at some of the narratives and some of the conversations about how embarrassing Indiana was, how embarrassing SMU was, I tweeted it out. It was like, if SMU and Indiana were embarrassing, what was Tennessee? Because after the first quarter, Ohio State had outgained Tennessee 205 yards to -3 yards in the first quarter, okay? And so Ohio State dominates the first quarter. And I'll say this, by the way, one thing, Ohio State fans, if you're watching, make sure you're following our Torres on Ohio State page, Torres on Ohio State, for all of my Ohio State coverage. We got a great intern on campus helping me run that account. But what was cool about this game and about this performance is, yeah, you get up 21-0. Ohio State has looked good for quarters before. They've looked good for games before, but they've looked good for quarters before. But what happened in the second quarter? Tennessee gets the ball back. They end up settling for a field goal, whatever. They get the touchdown right before the half. And what was so cool, if you're an Ohio State fan, is your team did face adversity. You're up 21-0. Now all of a sudden it's 21-10 going into the half. Tennessee gets the ball back to start the second half. And everyone's kind of sitting there saying, I don't know, is this Ohio State thing going to happen again? I know. You get the ball on your first drive. First of all, you force the punt on the first drive. You get the ball to Jeremiah Smith, another touchdown. All of a sudden, it is 28-10 early in the third quarter. You put up another touchdown before the end of the third quarter. And oh, by the way, we know what the fourth quarter became. It became victory formation, cigar smoking time. Because how about this? Ohio State not only put in their backups. One drive they put in Devin Brown, the second string quarterback who's transferring. Next drive, they put in Julian Sayin, the true freshman who's probably going to be the starter next year. Then the final drive, they put in Luke Kineholz, excuse me. Luke Kineholz is his name, right? I'm blank. Lincoln Kineholz. I apologize. They put in Lincoln Kineholz, who's literally the fifth string quarterback, did not play since last year's Cotton Bowl when Devin Brown gets hurt. And so you talk about swaggy Ryan Day going to the fifth string quarterback in the fourth quarter just to prove a point. I loved it. I haven't seen Ryan Day that fired up since he was chirping at Lou Holtz. And Ohio State gets the win 42-17 in absolute dominant fashion. So let's go ahead and break this down. Let's go ahead and share some thoughts. And let me start with the obvious. If I'm going to criticize Ryan Day in defeat, then I have to acknowledge that I believe that was the best game maybe of his career. And the one thing I will say about Ryan Day is that it isn't often that as an Ohio State football coach, there's ever moments where people don't really believe in you, don't really believe that you're going to get the job done. You're Ohio State. You should win every single game you basically play, okay? But what I will say, there have been rare few moments where Ryan Day and Ohio State are truly doubted going into a game. And in general, those are his best performances as a head coach. Go back to the 2020 college football playoff. Do you remember that? That was the year that the Big Ten only played 4 or 5 games. Ohio State had the weird schedule. Thanks for nothing, Kevin Warren, but that's another conversation for another day. Wasn't Ohio State's fault. But they go into the playoff. People were saying, should they even be in the playoff based on the number of games they played? Remember, you had Dabo Sweeney chirping about Ohio State shouldn't even be here. And then Ohio State smacked that booty, and they destroyed Clemson on their way to a national championship game where they end up losing to Alabama. So that was one of the Ryan Day's best performances. And then 2 years ago against Georgia, 2022 playoff, New Year's Eve. We all remember it. We all remember where we were. And what's easy to forget, Ohio State lost on the final play of the game, field goal, etc. But remember, Ohio State fans, I know you don't need me to tell you, they were in complete control of that game until Marvin Harrison got a concussion, cheap hit by Georgia. I'm not here to relitigate that. But I bring it up because there's really, in my opinion, basically been like 3 times where nobody's really given Ohio State a chance, and those are Ryan Day's best performances. And I would certainly put the Tennessee game on Saturday night in that class as well. By the way, I'll just do a side tangent, and then we'll get back to the modern of Ohio State, because I've been asked about the Michigan thing. Listen, school up north will be quick. I don't want to ruin the moment, Ohio State fans. I don't think there's anything else to say other than that Ryan Day has a little bit of a Michigan block right now, because you can't say he doesn't win big games. He does win big games. Just beat a top 10 Indiana a few weeks ago, beat Penn State at Penn State. He's dominated Penn State. Now, listen, he hasn't beat everybody. But remember, Ryan Day, in his entire time at Ohio State, and he took over as the head coach in 2019, he has 1 Big Ten loss outside of Michigan games. That was Oregon this year. Final drive, Jeremiah Smith called for pass interference. They win that game. Ryan Day has literally never lost another Big Ten game. So he doesn't have a big game problem. He has a Michigan problem at this point. But I'll say, in this 12-team playoff era, and we're going to talk about it later, that does not matter as much as it once did. Ryan Day said last week, he said the goal all along was to play in this 12-team playoff. We're here. This is where the focus lies. And so I want to give Ryan Day credit. I got to take the L. I have been critical of him for 3 or 4 weeks. By the way, allergies kicking in here. I apologize about that for the live audience or for people watching later on YouTube. But I bring it up because if I'm going to criticize Ryan Day, I got to own it. But I'll also say this. Here's the other thing. Part of the reason that we have been so critical, like I think Ohio State fans think that I just don't like Ryan Day. It's not that I don't like Ryan Day. It's that I've seen you great in big games. You were incredible against Penn State. And then what happens a week later? You come back against Nebraska and it's sloppy. You were incredible against Indiana. And then what happens? The next week you lose to Michigan. So that's why I'm critical. Not because I don't like Ryan Day. It's because I want to see one of the best, if not the best program in college football reach its full potential. And so when you lose as a 23-point under home favorite to Michigan, yes, I'm going to be critical. But what we saw on Saturday was Ryan Day, this program at its best. And when everybody's rowing in the same direction, when you're feeding your best players, when Chip Kelly is cooking the way that he was cooking, our Torres on Ohio State account had a picture of him with a picture of a guy with some beakers from what was that show, Breaking Bad. I was like, Chip Kelly was in the lab over the last couple weeks. But when Chip Kelly is operating at the highest level, when you're getting Jeremiah Smith the ball, when you're getting Quinshon Judkins the ball, when you're getting Travion Henderson the ball, that's what we want to see. And I will say, I think this one individual game changed the entire trajectory and the entire conversation about this playoff. Because coming in, nobody has ever questioned that Ohio State is capable of making a run, capable of beating any team in this playoff. But what I just said a minute ago, it's the consistency. Listen, you went to Oregon, you went to Outson Stadium, and that was a game that you easily could have and maybe should have won. But then again, you take a step back against Nebraska a few weeks later. You win the game, but it was ugly. A couple weeks later, you beat Indiana. Everybody's back on board. Then you let us down again by losing to Michigan. And so I just bring it up because I will say, like I said, this does change the entire conversation of the playoff. Because if we get that Ohio State team, not just the players on the field, but the coaches on the sidelines, fearless Ryan Day, Chip Kelly using everything he has at his disposal, that's the best team in college football. And that's what everybody has been saying all year long, is that this is the best. You ask the bettors, you ask the people that do the power rankings in Vegas, they'll tell you Ohio State's always been the favorite. It's just you don't get it week in and week out. So I could go on and on. I just want to know from the Ohio State perspective, one, can we keep getting that? And I want to actually wrap this segment. This is kind of a question for Ohio State fans. I know some of you will see this live. I know some of you will see this on tape. I got to ask, like, does this change everything about Ryan Day? This is one, right? Like, when I do this show, I like to have answers to questions. I like to kind of know, okay, this is the topic of the day. This is my opinion. This is that. Whatever the topic is, it could be playoff rankings. It could be a team wins, a team loses, who deserves the Heisman. But I bring it up because I really don't know what this does say about the state of Ryan Day and Ohio State. Now, obviously, look, Ryan Day's obviously going to be back next year. I still believe if you had lost this game, there's a big conversation to have in Columbus. He's going to be back, but like, I am curious from Ohio State fans' perspectives. Like, does this change how you feel about Ryan Day? Is it still you lost 4 straight to the school up north? Is it still you have to go on and win a national championship to justify the spending on the staff and the players? That's one thing I don't know. And that's one thing I'll be fascinated to hear from Ohio State fans. And I think we're going to get divergent opinions because I put it out on Twitter. I got divergent opinions. I had some people say, listen, it's still national title or bust. I had some people say, I've always liked Ryan Day. I just don't know why he gets so nervous in the game against the school up north. So it's an interesting time. I'll be fascinated to hear, does this change everything with Ryan Day? Do you still have to make a deep run? What happens if you lose to Oregon next round? Those are conversations for another time. But credit to Ohio State. They've always had the ability to be the best team in college football. And on Saturday night, they absolutely looked the part. And I'll just say this, I will be fascinated to see if they can keep this up because I think it's interesting. The point spreads are out for the college football quarterfinals. Rose Bowl, New Year's Day. Guess what? Ohio State is the 8th seed, is actually a small favorite against Oregon. Now, part of it is they easily could have beaten Oregon in a true road game. So in a neutral environment, what does that mean for this game? I don't know. I'm just here to say I'm curious to hear what Ohio State fans think about Ryan Day. But I think as importantly, we got to give him credit because he was just